Welcome to Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine. Our musical selection for today is Ain't Nobody's Business. There ain't nothing I can say or nothing I can do. Want to anyway, and don't care just what people say. So if I should take the notion to jump into the ocean, ain't nobody's business if I do. If I go to church on Sunday and cabaret all day Monday, ain't nobody's business if I do. If my man ain't got no money, and I saving all of my business if I do. If I give him my last nickel and it leaves me in a pickle, ain't nobody's business if I do. Well, I'd rather my man would hit me than follow him up and kiss me. But ain't nobody's business if I do. Now I swear I won't call no copper if my band just proper. But ain't nobody's business if I do. Nobody's business. Ain't nobody's business. Nobody's business if I do.
Woo! I know you are the minister of flavor and musical vibes, but you always just send me there. Let me go ahead and put you backstage real quick. Thank you, Lynette. Fam, what's good with you? I am Alexis Roan, aka Alexis Grace, founder of Truth Meets Story LLC, expanding empathy one story at a time, and host of Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine at Vespers. This is a faith and adult storytelling series. By faith, we mean we explore how God shows up for us, the mystery, the madness that we can't discern. All of that, we're gonna call all of that faith. And adult storytelling, I mean, we tell stories for adults, by adults, to adults with a developed adult context. And no apologies are ever issued on Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine. 7-year-olds have a story time, and now so do adults. So you're welcome. I always say you're welcome because I'm like, I have so wanted to always be in this kind of space. And I always wanted somebody else to do it. But every time somebody else tried to do it and they would be like, oh, we're going to keep it real. We're going to keep it real. They kept it hella sanitized. And I'm like, you know what? Listen, I'm grown. I can handle it rough. I can handle it deep. I can handle it true. Like, take me there. And so clearly I had to be the one to take me there. And then I've invited all of you along, all of you all to come along with me. And I'm so glad that you have. I love this platform, and I love how people are all the time teasing me about the ways that I just show up unapologetic. I'm like, look, I am who I am, doing the work that I'm called to do. One of my sister friends, who is a regular to Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine, says that her husband, like she had told her husband and her daughter, hey, look, it's time for church. And so they're like, oh, her husband says, oh, that's right. Bitches, baptism, and Beaujolais. I was like, after I stopped laughing, I was like, this might be a platform for me to do on Clubhouse, because I feel like they keep it like rough, raw, real, like on Clubhouse. So if I start to do something, I call it the after hours spot, like in college, after the Greek shows, they would have the party, they'd have the after party and then the after party. So I feel like if I were to start curating bitches, baptism, and Beaujolais, that would be like the after party, like, because everybody can't be up in that space, but we're gonna keep it real, and we're gonna keep, make it do what it do. And then I also had another sister friend. She's actually a master storyteller, and she's been featured several times on Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine. The last time she was with us, her fiance was like, yo, I love what Lex is doing. I can't believe that ain't nobody from the church like complained or done whatever. And so I was like, well, I call it Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine because I feel like I'm putting out there like who can handle this. And, if you are a quote churchy person, you hear Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine and you automatically think that we got Jesus naked. You just see a naked Jesus for whatever reason. Whenever they hear like adult storytelling, like, oh Lord, Jesus ain't got no clothes on. And what we have done is we keep Jesus clothed, but we dress Jesus in adult stories. So that's how we, that's how we move in the world. And so, people who would quote report me for this platform, most of the times they will be too scared to tune in because they were like, Lord, I don't want to see a naked Jesus. Today is a good day because I show up everywhere, always encouraging people to engage their bliss, to speak up, to not make peace with silence, to know that silence does not protect us, and that we have work to do, and that the work that we have, and specifically the solutions that we have, are as close as the stories that we have already lived, the things that we have already more than conquered, that we've already overcome. Tell those stories; they become solutions for other people. And so this week has been really interesting because I have had a series of people show up and demonstrate how I have influenced them. One of my storytellers, she actually attended several of my workshops, and then she invited me to this thing that she's doing called the Conversation Lounge. It's for women of color. And I had a tech rehearsal that ran late this week, and so I wasn't able to participate in the full-on deal. And by the time I did like tune into the Zoom, everyone was already in their breakout sessions. And like when she sees me pop in the, on the screen, she was really excited. And she was telling me about how all of the work that she had done in the workshops that I had coached and the events that I have curated have caused her to say, you know what, it is now time for me to speak up. Lex has shown me how to speak up. I know how to tell my story. Damn it, I'm about to do it. I'm about to pull others into that space. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. The influence. She is telling her story and she is making room for others to tell their stories. The second influence that came up was one of the attendees here to Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine. She shows up weekly and she's really moved, so much so that she encountered a situation in another group that she's a part of, and she needed to not just speak up. It wasn't enough for her to speak up in that group. She felt like what she was feeling in the space where you have, our white cousins that are coming in and they are well-intentioned, but somehow whenever we get on the issue of race, they somehow make it about either their guilt or their pains or their frustration about how somehow we not being nice about, when we talk about racism. I'm like, shit. Some conversations are just not going to be nice. You just have to make room for the anger. Some conversations will be angry, but the anger is not hatred. Hatred is death and destruction. Anger excavates the honesty. Anger gets us to the real. And anger also helps us to heal and to like figure out exactly what needs to be done. So she has penned an article that she's going to publish, and I'm looking forward to, as soon as that publishing date happens, I'm going to share that with everyone here tonight in the virtual pew. And the article is called "My Love Letter to My White Allies." Love letter to my white allies. She's showing up. She's speaking up. She's not sitting there saying, okay, well, it's more convenient for us to just kind of tolerate it and take it. We got work to do, fam. And so I am grateful that the influence that I'm having in this space is causing you to go out into the world and to make a difference, to show up, because there's a ton of things that need to happen. And then the third thing that happened this week that I thought was hilarious. It seems that even my onomatopoeias and my like all of that is also an influence. I was talking to my mama this week, and she was checking her mail. We were on the phone. She was checking her mail, and she got something in from her insurance company. She suffered some damage during the winter storm in Texas a few weeks ago. And so her insurance company sent her sort of like the estimate, like what was going to be covered. And so she's talking to me, and like she's opening her mail, and she's telling me what she's opening. And then she stops and she reads it, and she says, "Woo!" And then we both just fell out laughing. And then after she stopped laughing, she says, I think you really need to stop doing that. That kind of gets on my nerves. And to that, I was like, well, you do realize that anytime you tell me something gets on your nerves and you try to like tell me what I can't be doing, I'm going to do that twice. So that's for you, mama. Hey, mama, say hey to the people if you are in the virtual pew. Let them know that I'm not talking about you behind your back. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. God's eyes on the sparrow. I know God is watching me. So interesting how that song is so often played in funerals, but the minute somebody shows up and begins to sing because they're happy, they're like, that's hurting my ears a little bit. I'm like, you know what? Y'all gonna have to get over it. Because the minute I stop singing, it is going to be for one of two reasons. I will stop singing either because I am not happy, like something has robbed me of my joy, and that will cause me to stop singing. Or somebody has said, Lex, we're going to put $51 million in your bank account if you cease and desist, if you no longer hit that note. And I feel like if that happens, I'm going to be like, I'll be able to like do that Drake hook, I'm going to have to, edit it a little bit. 51 sitting on 51 mil. Like that's the only reason why I would not sing if I'm not happy, or if I'm truly not happy, then I won't sing. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all that I am. I'm grateful that I am committed to doing the work that God prepared in advance for me to do. And it looks different from your work. And so I pray that in the same way I'm doing my work, that you're doing yours, and that everybody is practicing fidelity to who they are. And the world is better as we're getting it all in. Everywhere I've ever been, in any space, any context, any community, wherever I've gone, I've always like fully shown up who I was. When my ex-husband and I moved to Phoenix, Arizona years ago, we moved to Houston. He had gotten a job in Phoenix. This was during the .com, the .com craze. He had gotten one of those big cushy general manager jobs for this new .com startup. And so we relocated to Phoenix. And then shortly after that, 9/11 happens. And then everything goes to hell. But immediately the .coms are the first thing to go belly up. So he is unemployed and he's depressed, and I'm the one that's having to basically show up for us. And so I'm like, by then I think I only had one book on the bookshelf. The other one, the second book the draft was in, I think it was like in the rewrites, like on the second or third draft by the time we relocated to Phoenix. And so I'm trying to figure out if he's too depressed to work, then like between the two of us, somebody gonna have to go to work. And I just grown accustomed to living indoors and eating every day. So I'm like, all right, I guess it's on me. And so I began to really think about what it is that I could do and that I would enjoy doing, and that would continue to keep me in the creative space and perhaps show others how to do this. So I got a contract. I got several contracts actually to serve as the writer in residence on a couple of high school campuses. Most of them were um, inner city, predominantly white campuses is what they were, and so it was a very alternative campuses. And then I was showing up as the writer in residence, and I was charged with like staffing the campus journalism team and teaching the students how to engage creative writing as as an elective. And so most of the students who would show up for my class, who would sign up for my class, were the alternative of the alternative students on this predominantly white campus. So for example, one of them, and he absolutely became my favorite, but this is how he became my favorite. He was about 6'3", this big burly white boy, curly hair, scruffy beard. We're in Phoenix, Arizona. It's the desert. It is hot as hell. And he wore chartreuse silk pants and a black leather trench coat. That's what he wore in the desert. And so I'm looking at him and I'm like, what the devil? But one of my very first writing assignments was, tell me, who are you in your own words, either who you see yourself or how others see yourself. And the word that he used that I will never forget to describe himself is, I am stereotyped. I am stereotyped. Of course, this was after the trench coat mafia, the two boys that shot up Columbine High School in Colorado. They too had this sort of this look with the black leather trench coats. And so he said that that he was often stereotyped, and he became not only one of my absolute favorite writers, but I call him my son, and I periodically reach out to him and ask him, do I have grandbabies yet? And then he'll send me a picture of his dog. And I was like, I don't want dog for grandbabies. I don't want dogs for grandbabies. I need some extra grandbabies. Good guy from the very beginning, sweetheart. But he was sort of a snapshot of all of the others. Again, he was the one, and all of them were very gifted writers, but all of them were stereotyped. He was the only one that took that label. So white students, stereotyped, alternative, kind of goth, and they're sort of in that space. But I show up, I'm like, listen, I'm Alexis Grace, and on a good day, and if you try me, I'm Alexis from Texas. Like you can meet her too. Like you take your pick, whichever one you want to engage. I always encourage them, because they were going to be writing, I encouraged them to always engage with who they really were and to give us the gifts of their insight. How do you see the world? Put that in writing. We're going to put that in print. And we're going to keep it moving. I love them. They love me. There were boundaries that were in place. Like it would have been a space where they would have called me Lex, except the superintendent of the district was like, you are not Lex, you are Miss Roan to them, to all of the students. And so there was that space. But because I just let them be free to who they are or be who they were, then there was just an easy camaraderie between us. Well, one day, my husband, Mr. Roan, comes to the campus, and he comes into my classroom. It's the end of the day, and I'm like, hey, I'm wrapping up or whatever. I introduce him to the students. Hey, this is Mr. Roan, and then he goes to waiting like in one of the conference rooms or something, waiting for me to wrap up. So I was meeting with one of the students after class. All of the other students had left, and I assumed that they had all left campus, when all of a sudden a group of them ran back to my room. And they said, oh my God, Miss Roan, you won't believe what happened. And I'm like, what? And he said, and he named the student, I'll just call him Tim, said, Tim went up to your husband and said, so are you Miss Roan's bitch? My eyes get big. I immediately leave whatever was the situation that I was currently dealing with. I walk to the conference room. I'm looking at Mr. Roan, and he looks at me and he says, these kids got me fucked up. And I'm like, oh Lord, you didn't put your hands on nothing. Like, I'm trying to see like what happened. So clearly he wanted to, but he didn't. He didn't put his hands on anybody. But A white male student walked up to an unemployed black man whose wife was working to support the family. Now, while this white student could not have known, Tim could not have known any of these things because he was, still, basically a child and did not have a developed context and did not understand exactly, like you may have thought you were being funny with your friends, but this was a deep wound. But it was also evidence that perhaps I had allowed things to become too lax in that space. So it's the end of the day, everyone has already gone home. The next day, I show up to class in black leather boots and a military fatigue skirt, a black little sweatshirt or something, and I had a different look on my face. Everybody who would initially look in my eye, they all turned away immediately. They were like, I don't know, like something is happening here. They all come into my room. I close the door. Now, I don't remember exactly what I said, but from that day forward, it was a very different day. And when my mother came to visit Arizona, she came to the class and the students pulled her to the side and said, excuse me, Miss Means, can you please bury that and burn that fatigue skirt that your daughter has? It scares us when she wears. And that was a hell of a cute look. The black, there was like the knee-high boots and everything. The look worked. I was mad cute in that look. But I meant business on that day. And I realized that I needed to set them straight. And even when I had Tim go and talk with Mr. Rohn, he could never say, I was wrong, I'm sorry. I guess that's just what privilege looked like. Even when you are an alternative looking white man who wears blue nail polish and black lipstick, you can still go to a black man and say, okay, well, yeah, I'm not, if you were offended, then, so be it. I ended up leaving that campus probably like a year later or so. And Mr. Rohn was employed for another 2 years. So I had to go find another gig. My point is that sometimes when we are on these campuses and we are with students and they are still trying to figure out how to navigate life, we can help them be better. Even if they are initially afraid or frightened or whatever, like, so be it, if my intentions are good. But what happens when you encounter leaders on campus whose intentions are not good? The things that they say leave an impact. Do you show up for our students, or do you just say, okay, look, they're young, they'll get over it? How would you handle that? The story that you're about to hear is from someone who I highly, highly respect. When I think of what it looks like to amass courage and to speak up, it is her and this story that she is about to share that I think of. Brace yourself, fam. And please welcome Miss Trina Francis as she dresses her truth in story.
So the year was 2009. I was about a year or so out of undergrad. I decided I no longer want to be a social worker and I want to try my hands at teaching. So I want to get into education. So I went ahead and I found an alternative certification. And some of the requirements were that I had to go through some classes and then I needed to find a teaching position where I would, the first year would be considered my internship year. And at the end of this internship year, I would get my principal's recommendation, and then I would have my standard certificate to teach in the state of Texas. So I did everything I was supposed to do, and I started looking for a position. And I found one, but the position that I found was not the one that I truly wanted. It was a full-time tutoring position on the campus of Addix Middle School. I was going to be a math tutor. Wasn't a teaching position, but it was something, and it was a foot in the door. And so I took it, and I went through that whole year, and I tutored and coached. The other thing about coaching was I didn't get paid to do that because I wasn't a certified teacher. So I kind of volunteered my time to be an athletic coach, which is fine. I love the kids, love the campus, learned everything that I need to learn, and it was great. And lo and behold, at the end of the 2010-2011 school year, I was offered a full-time teaching position teaching seventh grade math. I was ecstatic. I was happy. I was ready to do this. It was great. That whole summer, I spent coming up with different things that I needed to do, how I wanted to decorate my classroom, different lessons I wanted to do. Well, a month before school was supposed to start, we get an email saying that the principal is no longer the principal, and the district has hired a new principal. And if you want to meet this new principal, show up to Addicts at this time and at this date. So as I'm reading this email, I think, okay, cool. I see the new principal's name. It says Dr. Lakeisha Jenkins. Now, judging by that name, I figured two things. One, she was female. Two, she was a sister. And I was good with that. So the day comes. I go up to Addicts and I walk into the auditorium and I see Dr. Jenkins standing there. And she's talking. And when you see Dr. Jenkins, she has natural hair, beautiful brown skin. She's a beautiful woman. Some people, when they see Dr. Jenkins, would probably describe her as maybe, I don't know, aggressive and intimidating. But when I saw Dr. Jenkins, she was commanding, she was assertive. And she was talking about her educational philosophy. She was talking about all the things that she wanted to do with Addicts, and she wanted to take Addicts to the next level. And I was loving it. I loved everything that she was saying. I was like, this woman is great. She's wonderful. She's going to do great things here. And whatever she's going to do, I want to be on board. I want to do it too. Whatever she asked me to do, I'm going to do because I believe in what she's saying. Everything that she was selling, I was definitely buying. So the time comes for us to line up and introduce ourselves to Dr. Jenkins. So I get in line and I'm excited. I'm waiting my turn. And finally I get up there. I put my hand out and I shake her hand and I say, Dr. Jenkins, it's nice to meet you. My name is Trina Francis and I am your seventh grade math teacher. And she looks at me, slowly nodding her head. And I'm looking at her and she's looking at me. I'm smiling and stone cold look on her face. Doesn't say anything. It seemed like an eternity. In reality, it was probably about 5 seconds or so. But it was awkward and it was weird. And so I broke the silence and I said, well, it was nice to meet you. And I walked away. That first meeting with Dr. Jenkins told me that Dr. Jenkins wasn't somebody I want to be around. And I was going to stay clear away from her. I wouldn't go out of my way to find her. So the school year begins. There are two things in my classroom that are non-negotiables, even to this day. One, anything below an 80 is failing. I want you to try your best. You have to try your best. Two, there are no niggas in my class. Once you walk into my classroom, you refer to everyone by the name that they were given at birth, period, non-negotiable. It took me half the semester, but by September, October, the kids got it. They understood it, and they abided by those rules. About September or October, my husband and I had two deaths in the family, one on his side and one on mine. And the funerals were both out of state. So we knew we had to go to one, but we couldn't go to both. So I went to Dr. Jenkins one morning and I said to her, I was like, Dr. Jenkins, my husband and I had deaths in the family, and I'm going to have to take a few days off to go to the funeral. And immediately she says, rolls her eyes and sighs. And then she kisses herself. And she says, wait, that wasn't the correct response. And she looks at me and she says, I'm sorry to hear that. Take all the time you need. And I'm thinking to myself, did this woman really just have an attitude and get annoyed because I need to take a few days because we had a death in the family? It was crazy. But nevertheless, I said, well, thank you. And I walked away. Then I ended up not taking the days. I just didn't want the hassle with Dr. Jenkins. But then in November, or end of November, early December, I find out that I'm pregnant. So my husband and I are expecting our first baby, and we are excited. But we know that the first trimester is like the most difficult in terms of whether or not the pregnancy is going to be successful. So we don't tell anybody. We keep it to ourselves. So we go out on Christmas vacation and we, have a good time. We see family. And then the second semester rolls around and school starts up again. And it's January. And I'm rejuvenated. I'm happy about being on campus. I'm ready to go. And one day, as I'm sitting in my classroom, a student runs in. She says, Coach Francis, there's a fight outside. And so I jump up and I press the call button. And someone answers, and I said, hey, there's a fight. We need an admin or we need officers. He said, okay. So I go out there and I see these two boys fighting. They're going at it. They're throwing punches. They're doing it all. And I know I'm pregnant. And so I know I don't want to get hurt. I know I'm still in my first trimester. I don't want anything to happen. And then I look and I see my other 7th grade math teacher, white woman, young, blonde, petite. She jumps in. She jumps in into these two boys that are throwing punches, and she's trying to wrangle one of them. And I see this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to get killed. And there's no way I'm going to stand back and let this woman get killed. I can see the headlines now. White woman trampled. And so I jump in. And I'm trying to hold back one of the boys, and she's trying to hold back one of the boys, but they're still going. They're throwing punches. They're blowing. I mean, it's crazy. And bam! Just like that, I catch a punch to the head and I catch a punch to the face. And so when the other students that had been standing around watching see this, then they try to jump in and try to restrain the boys. And so the teacher has one, I have one, there are other students trying to get both of them. And finally, after what seemed like a long time, we were able to calm the situation. And the other teacher takes one boy into her class and I take another into mine. And we wait. And we wait. And we're waiting, thinking an administrator is coming or an officer is coming. Someone is coming. And then finally, we realize nobody is coming and we need to do something. So being that I was the one without a class, I said, well, let me take them down to their grade level AP. And so that's what I did. And I'm praying as I'm walking down there with these two boys that they don't start fighting again, because there is literally nothing that I could do to stop them. And thankfully, without incident, I got them down to their AP. And, and the boy that hit me, he was very, very apologetic. He was remorseful. He was sorry. It wasn't his fault. He says he wasn't trying to hit me. And I got that. I understood that. I wasn't angry at that at all. So as I'm walking back to my classroom, I'm thinking about everything that just happened. And I'm like, this is not okay. And I'm upset. I'm not upset because I was hit a few times. And I'm not upset because I was in pain or anything. I'm upset because I called for someone and nobody came. No officer, no administrator, nobody. So by the time I get back to my classroom, I'm upset. And I've decided I'm going to write an email. And so I crafted an email to Dr. Jenkins detailing everything that had happened from the minute I was told about the fight to me having to walk the students down by myself to their AP. And I sent it to her. Dr. Jenkins then sends me an email saying if I had better classroom management, there would have been no need for an AP or an officer. So basically, this was all my fault. And I realized like maybe Dr. Jenkins didn't truly understand the details of my email. It wasn't even my class. So my classroom management had nothing to do with the situation. It was another teacher's class. And so I tell her this in a second email. I let her know that my classroom management was neither here nor there because it wasn't my class. And even if it was, the fact still remains that I called for someone and nobody came. No officer, no administrator. And that's an issue because my life, my safety, my colleagues' safety, and the students' safety are in jeopardy when nobody comes when we call. Dr. Jenkins sends me another email basically saying, I said what I said. Now, I realized another thing about Dr. Jenkins after reading that email. This woman was ignorant. She was absolutely ignorant. And I'm not a fool. I know not to argue with ignorant people. So I left it alone. I was like, I had nothing else to say. So generally, during my lunchtime, I would go to my car and I would eat my lunch and wait till the very last minute before I come in to pick up my students from the cafeteria. But this particular day, I don't know, I felt led to go in a little early. And as I'm walking and I'm passing by the cafeteria, I hear a little commotion. And I was like, that's strange. And I see a young lady come out and I say, hey, what's going on in there? And she says, oh, I think there might have been a food fight or something. And so I said, food fight, let me go in so I can assist. And when I walk in, I look at the cafeteria, it didn't look like it was a food fight. Yeah, there was a little bit of food on the floor, but it was no messier than it always had been. So I walk over to my table where my students were and I said, hey guys, what happened? What's going on? And somebody says, oh, I think a few kids were throwing food. I'm like, oh, no big deal. And before I know it, Dr. Jenkins walks into the cafeteria. Shut up, she yells. Anybody talk, I'm gonna assign you 3 days of suspension. And I look, the entire cafeteria is quiet. No one's saying anything. They're just looking at her. And one of my students, Marcus, let me tell you something about Marcus. Marcus is a real goofy kid. He laughs about the silliest things. He's just real silly. And, the way I feel is you have a kid like Marcus who's not consumed with his surroundings. And, and Addicts was in the hood. And a lot of our students are dealing with a lot of social issues. And he didn't allow that to weigh him down. He laughed all the time. And when you have a kid like Marcus that doesn't allow that stuff to get to him, you don't try to rip it away. You don't try to beat it out of him. You don't try to yell it out of him. You encourage it. You nurture it. You counsel him and tell him, hey, there's a time and a place for things. But you definitely don't rip it away from him. So Marcus chuckles a little after Dr. Jenkins says this, and he wasn't chuckling at her. It was another kid that he had been chuckling at. And Dr. Jenkins looks at Marquise and she says, Marquise, get on the wall. And Marcus stands up to say, I wasn't talking. And she stops him. And she says, nigga, I said, get on the wall. Marquise stands up and he puts his head down and he walks over to the wall and leans against it. The entire cafeteria gasps. And I'm looking at Marquise and he looks broken. That joy, that goofy Marquise that I'm used to seeing, I didn't see it anymore. He was humiliated. Dr. Jenkins goes on, gives a lecture, yelling at the kids some more. And then she tells me, she says, Coach Francis, you can take your students and go to class. I said, okay. Take my kids. And what took me half a semester to erase from their vocabulary in my class, Dr. Jenkins had erased that in seconds, just like that. Because as soon as we got out the cafeteria, all I heard was, nigga, get on the wall. Nigga, I said this, nigga that. And I told him, I was like, y'all need to stop. We don't do this in the hall. So we get back to my classroom. I shut the door. And immediately one student raises her hand and she says, Coach Francis, why we can't say nigga, but Dr. Jenkins can call us niggas? And I told her, I was like, I can't speak for Dr. Jenkins. I don't know why that happened. But I can tell you, no one has a right to call you any name than what you were given at birth. That's it. And we know the history behind the word. We know why we don't use it. And the fact still remains that we don't use it in my class. Now, there wasn't much teaching going to be done that day because the kids they just want to talk about it. They want to talk about the issue. And so I allowed it. The consensus on campus from the administrators, the teachers, and the students was Dr. Jenkins, she was wrong. She messed up. She did something wrong. The next day rolls around. I have an AP that comes into my room and she says, Trina, do you know that Dr. Jenkins suspended Marcus? And I couldn't believe it. I was like, no, she didn't. She's like, yes, she suspended him. It broke me thinking about it. I thought about it all weekend. And Sunday night, I had made it up in my mind. I was like, this is not okay. It's not. Not only did she call him a nigga in front of the entire 7th grade class, but she suspended him. So I wrote an email detailing everything that happened from the moment I walked into the cafeteria, detailing all the steps that Dr. Jenkins had taken after. And I sent it. But I didn't send it to Dr. Jenkins. No, because I knew what that was going to get me. It would have gotten me exactly what I had gotten before, ignorance. So I sent it to Dr. Jenkins' immediate boss and the superintendent of our district. Monday rolls around. That same AP that told me that Marcus had been suspended comes in. She says, Trina. I'm like, yes. She says, Dr. Jenkins wants to have a meeting with you. She knows you sent the email. I was like, okay, I was expecting this. And she has had a change of heart about Marcus's suspension. I was like, okay, good. That's wonderful. And then the last thing she says, don't tell her I told you though. I was like, that's fine. So I go, I have a meeting with Dr. Jenkins and that same AP. And nothing really came out of the meeting because Dr. Jenkins basically told me that she did nothing wrong. Nothing that she had done was wrong. And I expressed to her that I disagreed. And she says, well, it is not your position. It is not your right. You don't worry about my kids. These are my students. I was like, well, Dr. Jenkins, these are my students too, and I care just as much as you do. And what you did was not okay. And she says, well, that's fine. You can feel how you feel. I left that meeting, nothing being resolved. That same day, Dr. Jenkins goes on an apology tour, or a pseudo apology tour, I would say. She goes to every single 7th grade class. She tells the teachers to go wait outside while she talks to the students. So this next part is coming from the students that told us what happened. Dr. Jenkins asked the students, did they feel like she did something wrong? And if they felt that she did something wrong, then they need to raise their hand. And then she goes and says, if you feel like I owe you an apology, raise your hand and I will apologize to you personally. Not a single student raised their hand. And when asked, well, why didn't you guys raise your hand if you thought that she was wrong? The student said she wasn't about to suspend me. So the kids already knew what they were dealing with Dr. Jenkins, just like we knew what we were dealing with Dr. Jenkins. She was ignorant, and they knew that she would retaliate against them. So they said nothing. The same day, or the next day, Marcus comes back. And I talked to him, I said, well, son, how are you doing? He says, I'm fine. I was like, I'm sorry about what happened to you last week. He says, yeah, it's okay. I said, so what did your mother say? He says, I didn't tell my mother what happened. I was like, well, why wouldn't you tell your mother what happened? He says, well, I didn't know if she would believe me, so I didn't say anything. I said, well, Marcus, you have to tell your mother what actually happened. He says, well, can you tell her? I was like, well, no, son, I can't tell her. He says, well, can you call her with me? I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I pull out my cell phone and I call Marcus's mom. And Marcus tells her exactly what happened that day. And she's furious when she hears the story. And so I get on and I said, well, Miss Collier, it happened. I was there. I witnessed it all. And what he's telling you is the truth. And she's angry. She's pissed off. She said, this woman lied to me. She told me my child had done all of these different things. And that's why he was being suspended. She lied to me. She says, I punished my child for something that he didn't even do. And I'm angry because I punished him and he accepted the punishment. He took the punishment knowing he did nothing wrong. She lied to me. She says, I'm coming up there tomorrow and I'm going to tell Dr. Jenkins what I think. And I said, hold on, Ms. Collier. Hold on. I know you're upset and you have every right to be upset. But don't come up here. Do not come up here to talk to Dr. Jenkins. I said, go to the administration building. Go talk to her bosses. That's who you need to talk to. Tell them how angry you are. Tell them what she did. And she says, you know what? You're right, Coach Francis. That's what I'm going to do. First thing in the morning, I'm going up to the administration building and I'm going to tell them exactly why I'm so angry and why what she did was wrong. I said, okay, good. And we get off the phone. Next day, my favorite AP comes strolling in my class. And she says, Trina, Marcus' mama is up here. I was like, I told her to not come up here. And she told me she wasn't coming. And she says that she confronts Dr. Jenkins. And Dr. Jenkins puts on a show. She's crying. She's apologizing. She's telling how sorry she is. And Marquise's mom is like, okay, I forgive you. No harm, no foul. And at the end of their conversation, Dr. Jenkins says, Miss Collier, can I have the number that teacher called you from? And so Miss Collier pulls out her cell phone and says, yeah, sure. And she gives her the number that the teacher called from. Dr. Jenkins writes the number down and cross-references it with personnel files. And she realizes it was me. It was my cell phone. I'm the one. And of course she's upset. So somehow, I don't know how, somebody leaks the story to Quanell X. Now, Quanell X is a social justice advocate here in Houston. And when he gets a hold to the story, the news gets a hold to the story. Everybody now knows about what has happened at Addicts Middle School. A principal has just referred to one of her students as a nigger. And it's everywhere. And Dr. Jenkins is not happy. The district finally decides to act. And she's suspended. Now, during her suspension, Dr. Jenkins is pretty certain that she's done. She's fired. She knows she's fired. She says she's fired. Everybody knows she's fired. Everybody knows she's gone. Dr. Jenkins had one saving grace. Dr. Fryer. Dr. Fryer was a consultant for the district. And Dr. Fryer told the superintendent not to fire Dr. Jenkins. And out of Dr. Jenkins' own mouth, she tells someone she was gone. But because she had a thin waist and a fat ass, that's what saved her job. So she comes back after a week suspension with no pay. She comes back and she's angry. She comes back with a vengeance. And I am the object of her vengeance. She is upset with me. So Dr. Jenkins is writing me up. Dr. Jenkins is having other APs write me up and telling them if they didn't write me up, then she was going to write them up. She's harassing me at this point. She's coming into my classroom. She's telling students that she's the principal and not me. And they need to listen to her and not me. She walks into my classroom and she walks in and she says one day, "Are y'all learning?" And the kid says, "Yes." And I said, "Yes, they're learning." And she says, "I wasn't talking to you, Coach Francis. I was talking to the students." I was like, "Well, I was just telling you." She says, "I need to see you outside." I says, "Okay, yes, ma'am." And so I give my students long, detailed instructions of what I want them to do while I'm outside. I take my time with it too. I give them all kinds of instructions. answer questions. I am the queen of petty. And I was going to make her wait just because I could. But I finally decided to go ahead and walk on out. And when I get out there, she says, Miss Francis, I tried to apologize to you already. I said, no, you didn't. You actually defended your actions, and you told me you did nothing wrong. And furthermore, you don't need to apologize to me. It was the students that you had wronged. She said, well, we just gonna have to agree to disagree. I was like, that's fine. She said, you need to get back and teach your class. I was like, that's one thing that we can agree on. And she walks away, and I open my door and I walk in, and all of a sudden the kids are cheering. They're like, yeah. I'm like, what are y'all cheering for? And I was like, she tried to punk you when you showed her you weren't afraid of her. I was like, you damn right. I was not. So her harassment continues day after day, and it comes ahead in February. I'm into my second trimester at this point. And she has been harassing me for weeks now. And after an altercation or a disagreement between her and I end up fainting in my class. And I had to go to the doctor. My doctor says, I'm going to have to put you on complete bed rest. This is not healthy. This is not a situation that you need to be in. So I made a decision to go out on FMLA in an attempt to save my child. Now, while I'm on bed rest at home, Dr. Jenkins is still sending me emails, calling me, writing me up. I'm not even on campus. I'm literally not supposed to be working, and I'm not working, and I'm getting written up when I wasn't even there. It was absurd. It was stressful. It was terrible. And finally, Dr. Jenkins is instructed that she can no longer contact me. So she sends a carrier to my house. But before then, I ended up delivering my baby at 5 months. And my baby obviously did not survive. She was too early. Not too long after that is when Dr. Jenkins, after she had been told not to contact me any longer, she sent a carrier to my house to tell me that my services for the 2012-2013 school year were no longer going to be needed. So I was out of a job once my contract had ended at the end of the year, end of the school year. And to add insult to injury, at the end of the year, remember how I needed my principal recommendation? Well, Dr. Jenkins gave me a non-recommendation. She had essentially put an end to my career as an educator, and I was done. I never went back to addicts after that. And a year and a half after that incident, Dr. Jenkins was told that her services were no longer going to be needed. And in true Dr. Jenkins fashion, she left right then and there. She was told in January or February or so, and she left right then and there and left addicts without a principal for the next 3 to 4 months of that year. Marcus goes on to high school where he is a really good athlete and then eventually graduates from high school and he goes on to college in Louisiana. Me, well, I end up running for a public office and won in my second term, and it's been wonderful. I have 2 children, a 6-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And I am a I have been on my current campus for the past 5 years, teaching and coaching. Now, I know you're wondering, like, how is it that you're teaching when Dr. Jenkins put an end to your educational career as a teacher? I was like, well, so remember how I went out on FMLA to save my pregnancy and to save my child? I didn't realize at the time that that child, I was not supposed to save that child. It was not meant for me to save that child. That child was meant to save my future. Because I went out in the last 3 months of school, I never truly completed my internship year. And my alternative certification program told me, all you need to do is find another job, work for 3 months, and get that principal's recommendation. And you will be a teacher. And that's exactly what I did.
Girl, we got some folks in the virtual pews. They ready to get their hands dirty. Donna was like, where's this Dr. Jenkins? I need to roll up on her. And then my mama says, count me in, Donna. And then Star's like, let's say when.
Did I really?
Cynthia's like, me too. Okay, everybody, look, everybody is ready to get their hands dirty. The absolute, but Rose says, the absolute best revenge, office holder, 2 beautiful kids, educator. Yeah, all of that.
I forgot to mention, Dr. Jenkins actually is now, she does conferences teaching principals how to be principals. The irony, right? And not only that, I have one more update I forgot. I've currently completed all of my requirements to be an administrator myself.
Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's how you get it in. That's how we do it. Stop playing with us. Oh my God, Trina. Okay, so listen, the comments are like flowing in. Star says, oh my God, love you, Trina. Can't wait to meet you, Star. Let me know when you're ready. She know what I'm talking about. Okay, Dr. Hall just said, where's this woman? Well, Dr. Hall, she just told us she's coaching. And now listen, Trina did change the name to protect the guilty. So anybody that's trying to Google Lakeisha Jenkins, y'all not gonna you're not gonna find her, but people like her. Dr. Neil Lester, he says, wow, teacher drama can be student trauma. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why what you did was so important, because I believe that, yes, teacher drama can be student trauma. And he needed somebody on that campus in that space to advocate for him. And that's what you did. And it was so sad that he didn't tell his mother. Mm-hmm. He's like, I can't, she won't believe me. She won't believe me there. Now everybody's like mad that she consults. Like, what? Oh, hell no. So they just won't give up. Dr. Hall, look, Dr. Hall, that's Reverend Dr. Hall. She was like, okay, look, let me know when we roll out. I think that's what you're saying, Dr. Hall. Okay, let's see here. Memory says, my heart hurts for you. I wonder what horrible thing must have happened to Dr. Jenkins. Thank you, Memory, for saying that. One of the things that we forget is that hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And that is that's so important to remember, that whatever wounded space had not healed from her, she is just, going around wounding others.
Well, Dr. Jenkins made a statement when she was during her suspension and she was, licking her wounds. She made a statement. She says, I keep making the same mistakes over and over again.
Wow.
So I don't know. Dr. Jenkins was from Mississippi, and she had a lot of issues I'm assuming with skin tone, she just had a lot of issues, and it just oozed off of her.
Well, what was her skin tone?
She was a dark-skinned woman. She was beautiful, very beautiful woman. And she just, she caused a lot of terror in on with the teachers and the students at Addicts, and I have to believe that it had to be something in her background. You know, her mother was very educated. Her mother was accomplished, and I think she was trying to reach the level of what her mother had done,
Okay.
And she was failing, and so.
Okay. Well, Donna said, "No, we need real names."
I tell you what, it's not going to be hard to figure out.
Star was like, look, I was about to go research her. It's like she's about to go look up, okay, Dr. Lakeisha Jenkins. Then Dr. Hall, same thing. And yes, great point, Elizabeth. Great point, memory. Let's see, Tekka is like, right, she was horrible. And then, Rose says, hold on, like these comments are like flooding. Like y'all like you really did have the audience captured. And you know what's interesting? I'll just put this, like I'll tell the folks in the virtual pew. The very first time Trina shared this story, it was at a live night of adult storytelling. And she was like super animated, and there were some other details, and the way that she communicated it had the audience on the floor in stitches, because all of the ways that Trina was very graceful and she was very gracious and loving in her telling, you know, because we got a live recording on YouTube. Trina's like, I am now a public official, and so we need for this to look a certain way. When we were live and we had the wine and we were drinking and we were cracking up laughing, Trina was hilarious. So I want y'all to know, if you can't tell, you know, success really is the the ultimate revenge. And Trina, like, can I confirm, Trina, that all is good, all is well with you? Like you good?
I am great.
You're great. Okay, thank you for saying that. And Rose says, we do understand hurt people, but it doesn't mean they don't need to be stopped. At least for absolutely, that you are absolutely right. They don't get to use that as an excuse. And I wonder if Dr. If Dr. Jenkins, I wonder if she did this because she just kept getting away with it. Like, I wonder what healing looks like for her.
Yeah, she absolutely kept getting away with it. And because once she realized that she wasn't going to be fired,
she went on. She ramped up.
She did. And, you know, I remember it was one instance where, you know, when she was told she needed to leave me alone because I was pregnant, because she didn't remember, I had not told anybody.
Right.
And I ended up having to disclose it to someone. And when she was told that she needed to leave me alone because of this situation, she didn't believe it. And she
thought you were lying. You were making up a pregnancy. Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And you know, what's funny is it was another teacher on campus that was having a breakdown because of the stuff that was going on with Dr. Jenkins. And Dr. Jenkins, you know, and another individual that was an ally of hers, you know, laughed at this individual and about what was going on with her pregnancy. And Dr. Jenkins met the same thing that she laughed at others about, like, miscarriage and loss of a pregnancy. The same thing happened to her probably about, you know, a couple of years later.
Yeah.
You know, so she didn't have any compassion and empathy for women that were pregnant. And in that situation, she just wanted to like pounce and be crazy and ridiculous. And she ended up having to experience the same thing.
Listen, life looks like, you know, it's like, I feel like God is sometime a Black mother who says, look, I can show you better than I can tell you. You're going to have some compassion. You're going to have some empathy. Tekka says, Lord, touch Dr. Jenkins before the Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Group touches her. You got the whole virtual pew. The virtual pews are lit. They were like, yo, where do we riding on this bitch? We got to go get her. Memory says, I'm proud of you, Trina, as am I. Like, I'm extremely, extremely proud at knowing you and how much I love this story. And I have told you this, you know, a lot of times. And I introduced you even by saying, like, this story becomes, we don't have an excuse. You did the courageous thing. And I'm, you know, and when we get to the last part of Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine, we'll have to wrap this up here shortly. Dr. Lester says, smart move that you made by not engaging with Dr. Jenkins when you saw who she was on the level she wanted to engage. It's like, yeah, ignorant people Like, yeah, it's like I don't do ignorance. That's not, I don't know that, I don't know that language. Very powerfully delivered. Absolutely. Yes, everyone was captivated. Wow. Wow. Let's see. Jeffrey Memory says, but we can't just try for retribution. We should focus on fixing things with love. And I have a word for you today, Memory, on that. So like, yes, so it's almost like Memory has read my notes, but I'm also very careful to not make love an excuse where we're like, oh, let's just kind of brush over everything. Let's just kind of, do whatever. Dr. Lester says the why of behavior may be too futile to try to answer. We can just show how, paraphrasing Toni Morrison in The Bluest Eye. Listen, hashtag facts, all of that. Well, Trina, thank you so much. I'm going to put you in the backstage. Don't leave me. Woo! Fam. Do Jesus. Okay. It's interesting how the story, I've heard the story multiple times. Boy, it hit differently today watching, the way y'all were engaging with it. Like, man, what's interesting is the way leaders, the way they don't all the time use their power for the well-being of the entire, for the people that they're meant to serve. They just don't. A lot of leaders don't do that. We saw that. What was it, last week when the Senate was voting, or maybe 2 weeks ago when the Senate voted, no Republican, in the Senate of the Congress, voted to support the American relief package. They're like, nope. And as a matter of fact, before, when they were negotiating, I still see Susan Collins as a part of this group that goes to President Biden's office and saying, look, why they got to give $1,400? Can't you just give them $1,000? Like, why it's got to be $1,400? I was like, is this bitch really like trying to lowball us? And so I immediately, I went there. I'm like, I am for real angry. And I was thinking about the prophetic text. I think it's in Isaiah, where the prophet is saying, your leaders partner with rebels, taking bribes. They refuse to help the most vulnerable in our population. They give the vulnerable new names. They call them lazy and unworthy and et cetera. But they're using language. And so my first response is to use my own language. Fuck you and you bitch and and then just start cussing them out and then talking about their mama. That is what I want to do. That is how angry I get at the fact that the people who have the power that we have given them by casting a vote or by not casting a vote, they come in and they give us new names, lazy, unworthy, nah, y'all be all right or whatever. I lament that, but here's my prophetic hope. I was reading the prophetic text in Isaiah 11, and actually I was reading it as a part of my Divine Hours prayer time. It's one of the prophetic texts that comes up in it's a part of this iteration that I pray daily. And it was the Isaiah text, and I was reading it where it's the spirit. They're saying the spirit of wisdom and understanding will be on them, the spirit of counsel, might, knowledge. He won't judge on appearances or make a decision based on hearsay. He's going to give justice to the poor and make fair decisions for the exploited. And then the next words they said was, by his word, this is going to happen, ... And I stopped on by his word. And I began to really focus and to meditate on the power of words and how so much of what needs to happen can happen if we stop cussing them out, if we stop coalescing and trying to go ride on them. If we start to speak into that unlimited space of the spiritual realm where we don't vote and nobody gets to decide for us, may it be according to your word. Declare with your own mouth what it is that you want to do. I love the late Rabbi Abram Joshua Heschel. He said that, words create worlds. He talked about Hitler not coming to power with guns. Hitler came to power with words. Words are powerful. And if fuckboys can use words to disrupt and destroy and to do all kinds of things, and I believe that every honorable person who is a part of this virtual pew can also speak a good word and create worlds based on the words that you speak. And so instead of me cussing and clowning about those leaders, I just began to declare in the spirit realm that there are leaders that are already right now being trained and they're coming up. And there are those of us who have money, and we're going to support them campaigns, and we're going to partner with them grassroots organizations. There's some folks right now who have what I call the solutions. The solutions are those burdens that you've been carrying. It's like, I want to do this. I've been having this idea about, getting this thing. And then we think that, oh, well, I can't do it because I'm not an elected official, or I can't do it because I don't have any money. Listen, it's time for us to stop allowing what we don't have to keep us from what it is that God is ultimately calling us to do. It's time for us to stop allowing other people to define for us what are our power sources and what are our options. Our words carry weight as well. And we must do the hard work of speaking truth to the cosmos and watching all of the mystery that coalesces around the power that we use just by standing up and saying, hey, what we're not going to do is keep allowing people who think that the poor, the oppressed, those who are without justice, like somehow, they're not a thing. We want to focus on this. The scriptures clearly tell us that those who are partnering with those folks, there's a day marked out for you. We heard in Trina's story today, Dr. Jenkins got her comeuppance and probably still is. But I love what Memory said. You know what? Hurt people hurt people. And I love that what we all know from our own lived reality is that we have the power to change, to grow, to evolve, to be better, to do better. And that evolution is not just for us to be able to say, oh, look at how I've evolved. That evolution has got to be about us serving the common good. We have got to go in and we've got to do that work. We've got to stand up. We've got to do the easy, but sometimes difficult task of just speaking up, showing up wherever we are. These little bitty small things that you're like, oh no, that little small thing is not going to make a difference. I promise you. That little small shift is going to shake the world. So let's be about it. But you're the only one who can do it. And I love what the prophet and poet Audre Lorde says, in speaking to the fact that some people were like, well, no, like we need unity, or we need, to all come together and just kind of love each other, whatever. She's like, look, what we need is articulate power, not conformity. Words have power. They are our power. So please, let's be about harnessing these words that we need to make a difference and to go about doing all of the important things that God prepared in advance for us to do. Now, my energizing memory is actually a picture of that's me with Trina on her and her husband they did a vow renewal when they first got married. And she saw, and and she know I'm clowning her. When they first got married, they went off to an island to have this wedding ceremony. And so none of us could have this, we couldn't come to the wedding. So they end up having a 10-year vow renewal. And I performed the renewal ceremony. And standing there next to me and Trina is Melanie. I met them both when they were teenagers, and as a ministry, a young ministry. It's called Young Life, the urban camp. And so I was one of the Young Life counselors and ministers and mentors. And it is so amazing to see Trina and Melanie be these beautiful, powerful women, mothers, advocates. Because I remember when they were young and they would get their hands dirty, especially male. And then when Trina got a little older, she got her hands dirty too a little bit. But then they washed them and everything worked out. I love them, and I love how I have been having this influence, and even with this influence, meeting these amazing people and making these wonderful, wonderful relationships. We need articulate power. We have work to do. By your word, let it be done. Finally, giving. I want you to focus on giving direction this week. Who needs to hear a word from you that's going to bless their lives, going to give them some insight? So focus on giving direction, give compliments, give insight, give inspiration, give do-overs, give people a reason to believe that everything indeed is going to be all right eventually. Yes, there's some stuff that's happening that makes us angry. Yes, it's some stuff that's happening and everything is not as we want it to be right now. But we're going to give it some time. And we're going to give it some love. We're going to give it some light. And we're going to trust that everything really is in the long run working out bigger and better than we know. Of course, you can also, if you have resources, please give money, give contracts, give sponsorships. But by all means, please practice fidelity to the ever important aspect of giving. We have more than enough. There is no lack. There is no scarcity. There is abundance, and everyone can be giving something. So you decide what that looks like, what's real and what's right for you. Now, before we go into the sending, I want to, let me go to the virtual pews real quick. Let's see, Trina's still getting love, and you're beautiful, Trina. Yes, Lex Stars, like, oh my God, I just love y'all so much. Limitless, absolutely, absolutely. Stars like, drop the mic. Leaders rising up, absolutely. Stainless, absolutely. Jerty's like, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Facts, all of that. Hashtag facts. And articulate power, absolutely. Let's just be about speaking it and watching these amazing things happen. And let's keep good records too, because people are coming after you that are going to marvel at everything that you're about to do and everything that you're doing right now. That started because you dare to speak by your word. By your word. It's a real thing. Next week, we have this beautiful person here, Miss Toya Coleman. I'm going to tell you, Toya is so cool that I was, right before I was releasing my fourth book in the Trek Baden series, Cover the Coup, right before I was going to release that book, I needed to practice. And I was having some anxiety because I was going to have to disclose some things that I had not publicly disclosed before. And so the Spirit of the Lord said, call Toya Coleman, invite her for a glass of wine when you get to Houston. That's how cool this person is. When the Spirit of the Lord says, hey, call her for a glass of wine, I'm like, I had to pick the best wine bar in Houston so that I can be sure to show Miss Miss Coleman all of the beautiful things that she is and to take in everything that she had to say. So join us next week as Toya Coleman is our storyteller. She's our storyteller for the week, next week. And she's full of amazing stories, and she just has an amazing way about her. So I promise you, you're going to enjoy and be blessed by what she has to say next week as well. All right. Our sending. Memory said in her comments that we've got to remember what love can do. And she is absolutely right. And we've got to know that a lot of times love looks like courage, the courage to speak up, the courage to advocate, the courage to tell power brokers that they are abusing their power, and one day they're going to see God if they don't quit it. We have got to be the ones who see love not as silence, not as co-opting our voice, but love as standing tall and saying, hey, I believe in your ability to be better. I believe in the ability for all of this to be better. And if it requires that I tell you and we have this uncomfortable space, so be it. That's what love looks like. It takes the risk. It takes the risk. I pray that this week you allow love to undergird everything that you're called to do. And that you would speak, and that by your words, that you speak into the cosmos, that you speak into the limitless realm of the spirit, that you would hear sweet messages of God's affirming grace and space and opportunity and God's presence with you, that you would just feel it. I pray that when you declare to the cosmos what it's going to be by your words, you create this world, these new worlds, And then you seal it with, FYI, God, I am declaring this because I believe in you. I pray that you hear God saying, FYI, I believe in you too. So let's go about and get it in, fam. All right. Blessings to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Join us next week, 5:30 p.m. Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine at Vespers. Blessings.
My funny Valentine, sweet comet Valentine, you make me smile.